Hamas is still holding 59 hostages, though Israel believes 35 of them are dead. Hamas yesterday released a propaganda video. On it, 2 hostages say they are living in terrible conditions that have only worsened since the end of the ceasefire.
During the ceasefire, 33 hostages or their remains were handed over to Israel in exchange for hundreds of Palestinian prisoners. But as Debora Patta reports, freedom does not mean the end of their ordeal.
These are the images we watch every time a hostage is freed. But Dr. Ofrit Shapira, a psychoanalyst counseling many of them, is seeing something very different. For so long, hostages held in Gaza feared they would be killed in captivity. Now many must learn to live in freedom.
It's like a death sentence, only you have to keep on living.
Some, like Yarden Bibas, discovered on his release that his wife Shiri and 2 boys had been killed.
I don't think it's a joyful freedom, completely joyful for any of them.
She told us the deepest trauma comes from the relationship with the kidnapper, both their potential executor and the person they had to please in order to survive.
The bad person and the good person get mixed up in a way that you can't really, you can figure out.
Because it's an imbalance of power.
You need to erase whatever makes you you. An individual with a psyche, with wishes, with thoughts, it just becomes a shadow of something.
Some hostages have spoken in the Israeli media about the terror, the isolation, the starvation.
You feel your gut stuck to your spine, going inward, and you can't believe what's happening to your body.
Abnormal fear, 0 sleep at night. The longings are crazy.
There is also rage, Shapira told us, towards the Israeli government and their military command, whom they believed would save them.
Of course, the trust has been fractured.
And why has that trust been fractured?
They have been abandoned. Trauma is when your basic assumptions about the world break.
But greater than all the pain, anger and fear,
love. I think it's the most important thing. I think all of them managed to remain human. You know, they were starved to death, but they could still share the little food that they got with someone else.
Love became their defense.
Yeah, and their reason to live.
Debora Patta joins us now from Johannesburg. Debora, coping, that had to be the toughest thing for the hostages. In what other ways did they cope?
Well, Maurice, Dr. Shapira told us about one hostage who was constantly tapping his fingers up and down his chest. He was, in fact, playing the piano on himself, hearing the music and escaping in that way. This is how he connected to who he was before the abduction, a classically trained pianist playing music silently on his chest over and over again.
Deb, there are 24 hostages still in captivity, believed to be alive. How's that affecting those hostages that have been released?
Well, John, the fate of the remaining living captives remains more precarious than ever now that Israel has resumed the war in Gaza. Shapira told us that most of the hostages were kept in small groups and developed deep bonds. So when some were released, it was gut-wrenching to leave others behind. And they've dealt with this by campaigning for their release and say they cannot begin to heal until everyone is free.